Okay, here we are. We are back. We are not on the same content stream that we were on when we started doing all of these YouTube lives. We've finished the 2020 Essential Guide to Self-Awareness, Self-Control, and Self-Confidence. But as my team and I were talking, and we finished doing the live streams of all of these skills, the 20 trainable skills to unleash greatness. As we went back to the drawing board and we were talking about the response, the unbelievable response from all of you who joined, we decided that we needed to keep coming on. We needed to continue providing value and continue being here, providing and doing these live streams. Frankly, just because all of you show up. And my team was adamant about it. I was fired up about it. I'm excited to do it. And so we're going to try to do this on a regular basis. No promises as of right now exactly when or how often we're going to do it. But we're going to do this. We're going to try to do it consistently. We're going to try to do it enough that... I should say this. We're going to try to do it as often as people are here and want to be part of it. So if you're here and you're watching live, and this particular session today, what we're going to talk about, and these will be a little shorter than the previous ones, but what we're going to talk about today was the daily discipline email that I sent out this morning, the 7 commitments to keep to your future self. If you don't get the daily discipline emails that I send out, they're free. They come at 6 a.m. Eastern time every morning. If you're not on the East Coast, then they come at whatever time 6 a.m. Eastern is for you. So ideally and hopefully that is before you wake up. And so a lot of people start their day with it. The way I try to write these emails, again, if you're not signed up, if you're not subscribed, they're free. They come Monday through Friday. And what I try to do, let's see if I can actually pull one up here. What I do when I write these, there's one right there. What I do when I write these is I really try to write them so that they can be consumed in 15 to 45 seconds. Right? I really want them to just be the length of the phone. So here's today's email. It's what we're discussing. And you can see, right? Look at this. I don't know if it's not going to be in. There you go. Look, that's the whole email right there, start to finish. Right? Like people just wake up and they get this quick little email, and all it is a insight into personal discipline applied to things like marriage, finances, health and fitness, business, leadership, building culture, teaming, competing, forgiving. It's just applied to anywhere in life. It is discipline to bring out to whatever's relevant in your particular world. So one of the things that my team and I are going to do is we're going to take daily discipline emails that we think are worth diving into at a deeper level, and we're going to dive into them here on YouTube, and we're going to do this on a regular basis. So if this is your first time, then I want you to follow the lead of everybody in the chat. If you've been here before on these live streams, you already know what to do. Jump into the chat and do 2 things. First, punch in where you're logging in from, where you are viewing from. And then second, you might have to close the chat if you're on mobile. Second thing is go find that thumbs up and like button. And if you are feeling generous, click that thumbs up and like so that YouTube knows that you are here and you are enjoying this. If you're not feeling particularly generous today, that's okay. Don't push the like button. Or if you're not feeling generous, click that like button despite how you feel today, because you're here, and if we're giving value, that would mean a ton to us. We always try to do our best to get as many thumbs up and likes as we have viewers. That just lets me and my team and us know that we're hitting the mark for you. So for those of you who do read my daily discipline emails, just a little bit of behind the scenes. This chair right here is probably where I write more of these daily discipline emails than any other place in the world. Particularly right now, because I'm not on airplanes. When it's more normal times, I am traveling a lot, so I'm in hotels and airports and airplanes, and I'm writing a lot in those environments. But that chair right there, and you can kind of see my setup, I've got a bunch of books over there. That's where I write most of my things. And a lot of them get written, well, all of them get written on this iPad eventually, because that's how I send it out. And that's the format that I type it in. But this is the origin of daily discipline. This is where it comes from, right? So this was last night sitting in that chair. This is where I wrote out the email for the first time. And you can see I wrote more in the notes than I actually put into the email because I actually write these out, a lot of them by hand first. And then those are just notes to me, and then I'll convert them into the actual daily discipline email. And so you can see, you can see here in my notes, right? I wrote down, I commit to never assume. And if you read the email, you see that's exactly how we start off the email this morning. So I really transfer them from my notes over to the iPad, and then that's how they get out to you. And so there's a whole process, and my team is really involved and integral in making sure that those get put together well and get out on time and have all the right links and everything. And I'm so appreciative to my team for that, because my job is just to write and bring you the best content that I possibly can to try to speak it into your life. So 7 commitments to your future self. Here's the first thing. Real quick, before we go in, let me just do a quick rundown of who's here today. So if you're watching this on replay, you can kind of get a feel for this audience. All right, who do we have? We got Mike from Portsmouth. We've got Bruce from Westerville. We've got Nick from Columbus. We got Tim from St. Louis. Eric from Kansas City, always jumping in. Dan from Des Moines. Brian from Oakland. Devin from Denton. Katie from Asheville, North Carolina. Represent. Andy from my team logging in from Greenville. We've got Dan from Ithaca. Brent from my team from Melbourne Beach, Florida. We've got Brian from Cape Coral. Raymond from Youngstown. Chris in Nashville. Rick Washburn down in Newberry, Florida. We've got Schmeck KSA from Murray, Nebraska. We have Lynn from Pickerington. All of you, thank you for being here. I appreciate you all so much. Okay, so the first part, commitments to keep to your future self. What am I talking about when I say commitments to keep to your future self? Well, here's the first thing, okay? Also, Elizabeth from Kennewick, Washington, thank you for being here. What do I mean when I say commitments to your future self? What I mean is this. I'm a really big fan of viewing who I'm going to become in the future as a person that I owe a responsibility to. Because that person is going to be who I make them. That person is only going to have, and whether that's in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 20 years, right? I turned 38 this month. By the time I'm 48, and by the time I'm 58, whoever that guy is only going to be and be capable of the things that I put that guy in position for. Right? It's a version of me, but it's also a different me. And I find that part of that for me is really helpful to think of not a completely different person, right? But almost. Again, it's just a thought exercise, but almost a different person, right? It's a person I don't completely know, because there's a lot of time between now and then. But I view that person as somebody that I owe a responsibility to. And I am responsible for creating, I'm responsible for giving that person things. And here's the ultimate kind of the bottom line core. That person is counting on me and relying on me, first to turn off my phone while I'm doing a live stream. That person is counting on me. That person is relying on me to put them in a position of success. And so there are commitments that person needs from me for them to be in a good place. And I want to be the kind of person that respects the future needs of myself, that respects the future scenarios that I might be in, and I am equipping and giving and setting that person up for success. It doesn't in any way diminish enjoying being myself right now. It doesn't diminish or pull away from how much I love being who I am in this particular moment. It's recognizing that there's always going to be, really, there's always going to be 3 things. And maybe this is a different topic. Maybe I'll write about this tomorrow. There's always going to be 3 things. There's going to be who I was. There's going to be who I am. And there's going to be who I become. And I'm always living in that spot. There's who I was. I'm not the same guy that I was at 18. I'm not the same guy I was at 25. I'm not the same guy I was before I was married, before I was a CEO, before I left the CEO role and started my own company. I'm not the same person I was before I was a dad. I'm not the same person I was before I was the dad of a daughter. Those are all different versions of me, related, connected, but different. And I don't know what's coming in my future, but I do know that in a year, I'll be different. Hopefully I'll be better, but I'm only going to be better if I actually make myself better. I'm only going to be better in a year if I keep my commitments to myself right now, so that a year from now, those commitments have all put that future me into a better position. So this is not to diminish our futures, or I should say, it's not to diminish our currents, or to think that somehow our future is better or there's some idealized state. And that's really the first place to start in the first commitment. The first commitment is this. The first commitment is to never assume that the future you will naturally be better or worse than the current you. Right? That's the first commitment. Never believe, because people do both. People will believe that either things will just naturally get better with experience. Like somehow the 40-year-old version of them will be more mature than the 30-year-old version of them because of years. And that's not true, right? That's just not how it goes. There's plenty of people who get worse between 30 and 40, or they stay very average between 30 and 40. Or at 40, they're just somebody who has more responsibilities, but the same immature behavior patterns that they had at 25 or 30. And then there's other people who believe that things get worse over time, right? There's people who believe that, aging is a bad thing, right? That, with the age, there's all of this different stuff, and that, as you get older, that, your 20s are your best, and that's the ideal place, and your glory years are behind you, and that, and neither one of those things is true. The commitment to keep to your future self is this, is to keep a string and keep a thread, right, that tells your current self and connects it to your future self and says this: your future self is not going to be naturally better or worse in the future. Your future self is going to be whatever you make it. That's the core responsibility here. The commitment is that who you become in the future, that path isn't written yet. That story hasn't been penned. Whoever you are in 2 years is going to be whoever you make yourself. And that is the commitment that you have to hold on to. And don't let life dictate to you, or don't think that nature will simply provide something to you that will make you better. You are making yourself. And so if there's a version of you you'd like to see in 10 years, if there's a place you'd like to be in, if there's gifts you want to give yourself, if there's things you want to be ready for, you, not the future you are responsible for giving those to yourself. So that's the first commitment that we want to keep, and that's why. The second commitment to keep is start now. Okay? Fast forward 5 years. However old you are, whatever you're doing, fast forward 5 years. Tell me what your new responsibilities are. Tell me what your new concerns are. Tell me what things have happened in the world in 5 years that you are having to deal with. Tell me what job changes you've made, and what current events have shifted, and what financial patterns and what family things have occurred. Tell me what your workload looks like in 5 years. Tell me what new technologies have emerged. Tell me what new skills or what old skills have had a renaissance and are needed again. And tell me what you've already accomplished. And you can't. Here's what we know. Like, you can't tell yourself any of those things. Here's what we do know. What we do know is this, is that your future self has a ton of responsibilities that are new to you, unknown, and on top of the stuff that you've already got going on right now. Meaning, if you fail to address the things you need to address right now, the future you is going to have all the stuff that you haven't addressed, plus all the new stuff that gets added over the next 5 years. Okay? And a lot of people find themselves in this position because they don't hold the commitment to start now. What they do is they just push the responsibility onto their future selves. There's something in their head that sounds like this. I'll take a break. I'll enjoy myself. I'll give myself some relief. I will relax. I will prioritize, my emotional and well-being and my mental health, whatever they convince themselves of. I'll preserve my current self. My future self can take care of that. And what happens is they end up loading their future selves down with so much that it can't get done. So the commitment is to not offload the work to your future self. It is to put those things that you can do now onto the responsibility of your current self, of you right now. Because the future you has enough to deal with, I promise. The future you has enough to deal with. And especially has enough to deal with that you don't even know or understand yet. And there's that room for uncertainty. So the sooner that you start, the more you leave your future self room and flexibility and freedom to go address the things that your future self needs to deal with and not stack those things up. Here's the biggest thing I want to make sure that we get from this commitment. The biggest thing we want to get from this commitment is this. Do not push the responsibility for dealing with things onto your future self by saying, I'll deal with that tomorrow, I'll handle that later, I'll get to that eventually. Your future self doesn't want that extra work. And frankly, that's you pushing responsibility away from yourself onto yourself later. Okay? Let's not do that. Let's make sure that we're handling our stuff now so that we can handle our stuff later whenever we get to those things. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, be courageous. Commit to be courageous for your future self. Because the more courageous you are, the more opportunities you're going to give to your future self. I think one of the coolest things that you can do for who you become in 5 years, and this is why I like thinking of it as a different person, or at least something close to a different person, right? I like to think of it like this. If you give it, the more courageous I am, and I'll speak in the first person on this one, the more courageous I am today, the more opportunity I give my future self. The less courageous I am today, the less opportunity I give to my future self and the more I constrain. I want to make sure that I give me at 45 opportunities that me at 35 didn't have. Right? I want to give me at, now I'm 38 again, I want to give myself at 41 the ability to try some things that I didn't get to try because I wasn't good enough at 31. And what that requires is the courage to go make the attempts. Right? It's not quite the start now. What courage is involved in that. The starting now is more timeline oriented, right? Get started, go tackle the things that need to get tackled right now rather than procrastinating it later for your life. Start right now. This is about being courageous to approach new things, to try new things, to add stuff into your life, to have the conversations, to address the fears, to step into the early messy work, right? To start a business, launch a YouTube channel, start a side hustle, introduce yourself to that one person, go try to get this job, go break into this new market, whatever it would be, right? That's what the courage is about. It's to give your future self opportunities that your current self or your past self didn't have or doesn't have. And that begins with courage. And what a commitment and what a gift you can give to yourself in 4 or 5 years to say, look, because I was courageous now, you have the opportunity to do this then. And I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. Next one, build skills that you'll need. This is the next commitment. Build the skills you'll need before you'll need them. Right? The things that you're going to need to do in the future are in some way you can anticipate, but we can't predict, right? Anticipate meaning we can look ahead and we can consider the things that might happen. Predict would be more confidence or reliability that they're going to. And there's not a long list of things that we can predict with confidence and reliability, but there's a pretty extensive list of things that we can anticipate. And and a whole other list of things that we can't. That'll be very big curveballs. And so a lot of times in life, what happens is people will wait to build a skill until they experience a really big pain of not having it, or when they experience a big gap, or when they get beat. They'll wait to build the skills until those things happen. And I think a great commitment you can keep to yourself is to look at, again, I notice the structure and I keep repeating it, is saying, okay, here I am at 38. It'd be really great if 42-year-old me was able to do this, 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 and this better, and could go out and operate in the world like with a high degree of confidence on these 4 or 5 skills that current me doesn't have. And saying, you know what? I think 42-year-old me would really appreciate that. And maybe I don't need these skills just yet, but 42-year-old me might. And so rather than investing in the skills for you today, you're investing in the skills for you at 42 or 22, or again, whatever age you are, wherever you are. It's investing into some future version of yourself that needs the skills more than the current version of you needs. I think an example that I see a lot, because many of you know I've got young kids. An example I see a lot is people waiting and learning patience, real time and painfully, with their kids as it happens and unfolds. And while a lot of parents end up do end up learning the lesson of patience, they do end up learning, the lesson of, of humility and empathy, and recognizing that people are different than you and they're not going to be exactly who you want them to be. They're going to be their own person. I can't help but watch certain parents go through that and observe to myself, you didn't have to learn this lesson so painfully. It didn't have to cost you so much emotionally. You didn't need to learn it in the fire. This is something that as a, somebody who says, hey, in the future, I want to become a parent. It's a much better strategy to practice patience for the 2, 3, 4, 5 years leading up to when you want to become a parent than it would be for the first 8 years of being a parent. Because those lessons are, they're just going to come at a higher cost, more pain, and more emotional energy that is going to, disrupt the family scene. And that's just one example. Learning sales skills before you're in a sales role. Learning persuasion skills before you're in a position of influence. These are all examples of building skills that you need before you actually need them. And the future you is counting on showing up to the moment with the skills ready to deploy. That's what the future you is counting on. The future you is counting on you equipping them with the skills that they need so that whenever they get there, they've got the skills that they need ready to rock and roll. Right? Give that to them. Give that to yourself. Next one. Keep trying. When you get frustrated, when you get tired, when you get lost, when you get confused, keep trying. Again, and this one relates back to the skill one, is your future self. In a lot of ways, it just depends on you. Right? If you stop trying, you in 5 years doesn't get it. It's like moving you down the path. You want to move yourself as far down the path as you want. But always staying aware that you're going to be somewhere in 4 or 5 years, and that wherever that person is going to be because of what you did, how far you went, whether you kept going, whether you kept trying, or whether you gave up. And, people say don't give up on yourself. And I'm a huge believer in that. And I think this is just an advanced way, a simple but advanced way is I'm going to be here in 5 years. Knock on wood, I'm going to be here in 5 years. And so where do I want to be? Like that guy is counting on me to get this right. That guy is counting on me to have courage and build the skills and keep going and start now. And so this is the commitment of I'm acknowledging, I'm anticipating, I'm knowing that I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to get tired. I'm going to get anxious about some things. I'm going to feel those disruptive emotions. My commitment is I'm going to push through those. I'm going to push through those. Especially in the moment when I don't feel like this, I know that person would want me to. You know what I'm saying? I'll even think about it in reverse, right? I'll think about, because we've all done this. I'll think about me in 2 years, right? When I'm 40. And I'll think about me in 2 years looking back on this me, and what would 40-year-old me say about how 38-year-old me acted, about the decisions I made now, about how I went about things. Because here's what I know. What I know is this, because I'll think forward about that, and I really like that process for myself, and it might work for you. What I really like about that is that 38-year-old me definitely looks back at 35-year-old me and says, good job, says, you could have done more here, and says, you really did not see that one through, and you missed the boat. You had an opportunity, and you know what? Because, and again, I'll talk right? But because I didn't do that at 35, now I'm sitting at 38, and I'm not down the road. Because I got frustrated at 35 and I didn't continue with the same effort and energy, I've now missed out on 3 years of window. And now all of a sudden I've got to tackle that at 38 if I want to get it done by 40. So thinking ahead about what would that future version of me look back and think on this version of me is the same thing, exact same thing as the current you looking back on what you did 2 or 3 years ago and being frustrated or proud of what you did or what you didn't do. That's a great way to think about that. 2 more. Commit to fill your mind with value and commit to fill your attitude with optimism. You know, we talk so often about building skills and so often about advancing and so often about a lot of more kind of concrete, strategic, initiative, goal-oriented kind of things, right? And I think this one is a commitment to who you're forming your mind to be, and for your this is the great way to do your emotional health, your emotional well-being. It's my emotional well-being 2 years from now is all about the groundwork I'm laying today. You know, in a lot of ways, I can't solve my biggest emotional challenges now. And I'm not really solving for now because I am where I am in this particular moment. I'm not solving just my attitude for now. What I want is I want to be building myself to be, more at peace, more in control, more confident over the long haul. And so how do I do that? Well, I commit to fill myself and fill my mind with valuable things, right? Not low value noise, not low value noise, not no value junk and wasted energy and content. It's give myself value, feed myself optimism, fill my heart so that builds and builds and builds, and I'm collecting years of that, and I'm ingraining those things into myself and not ingraining the surface level stuff, right? I'm not ingraining the political discourse. I'm not ingraining the Twitter complaints and arguments and fights. I'm not ingraining the blaming, complaining, and defensiveness that is pervasive everywhere. I'm feeding myself, right? So there's 6, and there's 1 more. And I just saw Chris. This will be, all the live streams are posted for later use. So anytime we do a live stream, it's always posted up on my channel later on so you can watch it. And then here's the 7th one. Here's the last one. I love this one. It is the closer. Commit to accept and embrace that who you become in the future will be different than who you imagine you'll be. No matter what you do, no matter how you imagine it, no matter how you plan, no matter how you work, whoever you become in 5 or 6 years is going to be different than you picture right now. It's going to be a different you. It's going to be unique you. Because we don't know everything that's going to happen. We don't know how it's all going to go. We don't know what realizations, we don't know what doubts, what uncertainties. And to a large extent, this list, right, based on which one of these you do with discipline and intensity and commitment and which ones you don't, right? Like Maybe you decide to start now, but maybe you don't do it with courage and you aim too low. And then maybe you get frustrated and you work on building skills and you start now, but because not enough courage was present in you and you didn't build it, and you got too frustrated and confused that you didn't put in the effort and energy, that's going to change your experience. And those experiences are going to change you, and it's going to affect who you become. Whereas if you bring all of the courage and you push through everything and you build all of the skills and you start now and you commit to your future self, it's going to alter your path. It's going to alter your experience. It's going to alter your relationships. First with yourself and then with the people that are close to you. It's going to put you in new circles. It's going to introduce you to new environments. Maybe even expose you to different industries. Could change the entire course of your life. And so sometimes we can get this picture in our head of some predictable path, some vision we have for our life. And when reality doesn't match the vision, it throws us off. And so the commitment I encourage you to make is just commit to accept and embrace that whoever you are in the future, it's just going to be different than you picture. Doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's worse. It just means it's different. And whoever you want to make yourself into, go back to number one. You're only going to become who you make yourself. And so commit to make yourself into the person that you actually want to become, because you have time to do it. You just don't have any time to waste. So those are the 7, right? Those are the 7. There could be 100, right? And I don't think it's smart to do 100 personally, but there's a ton. There's a ton. And, and then for each of these, right, there's, don't assume you'll be better or worse. Start now, be courageous, build skills you need before you need them. Keep trying when you get frustrated. Fill your mind with value, your attitude with optimism, and accept and embrace that you're going to look different than you imagine right now in the future. When you look at all 7 of these commitments, there's nothing that says you have to keep these. I put these up because I think these are worth considering. And at a minimum, I'm happy. Right? I'm happy if these find their way into consideration for you. I'm happy if you think about them. Okay, I'd be really fulfilled if you did something with them. But I'm happy if you just have higher self-awareness and you actually wrestle with some of these. How you answer and what you do is up to you, as always. Everybody has personal responsibility, and I'm a huge believer in freedom of choice and freedom of direction. So much so that your standards will definitely differ from mine, and vice versa, and that's great. It's an amazing thing. But if you have more self-awareness and you're thinking about these, and maybe you add a few to your list or you take a couple off, that is all good. I think these 7 commitments are worth any amount of time and effort and energy that you would spend into putting into them. So that's all I had today on these 7. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them here now. I see that there's a couple, but no other real core comments from me today. I just wanted to talk through this because as we were writing this out, I was like, this is a great list to break down, and it was one that frankly I wanted to describe more. It was one I wanted to talk through more and go a little deeper in, as opposed to just a simple bullet list, which is what I put on the email. So John Taylor, what's happening, John? Good to see you, man. John says, this makes you face you, and it absolutely does. That's why I call them commitments, and I think about my future self as a different person, because here's why. It's one thing to say, I think this is a sneaky, subtle, psychological play, but I do think it's real. We don't like letting other people down. We just don't. It's easy to push the responsibility to our future self. Like I said earlier, it's really easy for me to say, "Oh, the future me will handle that." And what all that means is this: I'll do it later, or I'll do it next year, or eventually I'll get in shape, or whatever version of not doing the thing now, and then whatever you say in your head, the future you will take care of it. Okay, whatever that is. it's really easy to do that when you don't ever let that future you talk back to you and hold you responsible for what it is that you're putting onto that person's shoulders. Because if you did that to your spouse, if you did that to your siblings, if you did that to your parents, if you did that to anybody else in life, like they would immediately say, why are you giving all of this to me? Why are you not taking responsibility, and why are you putting everything onto me? Right? They would tell you that. Or if you told somebody you would do something and then you didn't do it and you let them down, it would damage the relationship. And so we don't want to let other people down. We hate letting other people down. So that's why it's so beneficial and why it's so useful and why I encourage you to think of your future self as that other person, because now you have to answer to that person. Just like you have to answer to your husband, to your wife, to your friends, to your boss, to your team. It's a little psychological trick. And I even hesitate to call it a trick because it's actually real. That's the value of this. When you think of that as a person that you have a responsibility for, it changes the emotional quality of these commitments that you're actually making. It changes the way that they sit inside of our brains and inside of our hearts. Okay. Let's see. Chris asked if these will be posted in the future. Yes, they absolutely will. Mike asked, what was my major at Wittenberg? Well, I didn't have a major at Wittenberg because I didn't attend Wittenberg. I would never attend Wittenberg. They are our arch rivals. I'm not going to tell you what rhymes with wit, but I think you know what rhymes with wit. Okay? I was a Worcester grad. I am a Worcester grad, and my major was communication. That was what I majored in. Fantastic. Great. Hey, listen, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. If you are here, push that like, thumbs up button. You might have to, yes, go Scots, Dan. You might have to close the chat down, or just like tap the down arrow in the chat. Find that like button and push it. And remember to subscribe, and particularly after you subscribe, click the bell for notifications. And here's why I click the bell for notifications. Because that lets you know to get the alerts whenever we go live or a new video gets posted. And subscribing is one thing, but you know, if you want to know when we're putting up new content, when we're going live, and that's valuable to you, then the subscription and the notifications are the things that you want to do. And if you haven't, go to dailydiscipline.com. You can go right on your phone and sign up for the daily emails that I send out. They're totally free. There is no charge. I don't sell anything through there. I literally just pass an email each morning at 6 a.m. Eastern, designed to try to add value and encouragement into your life. So thank you all. I appreciate you. Dial into these 7 commitments to your future self. And I promise, 5 years from now, you'll be happy that you did.